I think we're going to get going. We have a quorum here. Don't know where everyone is, but this whole section is about getting to our allocation. And obviously, you've read the note that Ron and I sent. There was a fairly major surprise in terms of available funds. And we're going to hear about that from Sean.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Please.
My name is Sean Fahnhorst, and I'm Executive Budget Officer with Minnesota Management and Budget, and I'm here to provide an update on the Outdoor Heritage Fund. Overall, MMB forecasts the fund will have about $137.7 million available to appropriate in fiscal year 2021, assuming a 6% end-of-year reserve balance. On the handout I provided, the table on the right includes the most recent MMB estimates for carryforwards, sales tax receipts, and investment income. I've also included a 5% and 7% reserve scenario for your reference. The $18 million increase in the budgetary balance compared to the end of session is caused by a combination of three things: money returned from previous appropriations, expectations for higher sales tax revenues, and expectations for higher interest income. This November economic forecast revises fiscal years 19, 20, and 21, which is why the estimates can be quite volatile. For example, since last February's MMB's forecast for sales tax revenue in 2021 has increased from about $117.7 million to about $120.2 million. Additionally, investment income in 2021 is expected to increase from $3.4 million to about $6 million because of higher interest rates. The result is that we now forecast the Outdoor Heritage Fund will have about $144.9 million in total resources in 2021 before setting aside a reserve.
That's it, huh? Giving us 18 million bucks and that's it? Mm-hmm. So the 6% reserve, just to clarify for everyone, to remind everyone, we're required to have a 5% reserve. The 6% is the number we've settled on so that if the budget forecast comes in April a little light, we don't have to come back and talk about what ought to be cut. So is that clear to everyone why we're using 6% even though we're required to use 5%? Okay. So any questions on this report and where we're at? None. You waited a long time to do that for us. Thank you for bringing us extra money. We'd ask you to be more accurate next time because this is, it could go the other way and it'd be really bad. But thank you for the good news. So, obviously we have $18 million that we didn't think we had last week. And we have in front of us in your packet a proposed bill based on the discussions that we have had up till this point. It would need to be modified anyhow with the amendments that we've approved today, which is not difficult to do, but I got a call on Friday afternoon indicating we had this extra $18 million. I was able to, late in the day, get a hold of Ron Shera, the co-chair, to ask him and to brainstorm with him, and then ultimately with he and the staff, what do we do with this situation? We could choose to leave $18 million behind and appropriate it next year. That is an option for us. Or we could appropriate money of that $18 million into this year's bill. And Ron and I both felt that our job is to get money on the land. And holding back for a year did not make the most sense, as long as we can make smart decisions. We have an approved package at this point that I'm sure each one of you voted differently than what the chair's proposal and ultimately the decision for everyone was, but we all found common agreement in that with the projects that are on the list. The difference would be how much I thought one project should get over the other. So it seemed to Ron and I that we had a great list of projects, all of which did not get all the money that they wished they had. And that we should figure out some method by which we allocate additional money to each of these projects, or to some of the projects. And so we talked about different ways. Joe came up with a suggestion that we did not share with you, which was intriguing, and ultimately we thought, while it was great to have the suggestion, we really thought that getting the money into the projects as quickly as possible so that they're doing the work that we want to do is what we should strive for. So we came up with two scenarios. The first scenario was that we simply do what we did many years ago, which is allow each member to recommend their pro rata share of those funds to go to, and we chose up to 4 to be divided among those 4 projects, up to the point where it would never exceed the original request. We don't think we should be rewarding people with twice as much money as they asked for just because we have it. And that would allow us to have discussion. We would anticipate that we would draw numbers and decide who goes first and second and third, and allow each member to recommend how that $1.5 million would be spent. And then discussion ensue or not, and the recommendation voted on by the council. The second way is just to say, we got an extra 15%, let's give everyone 15% more. We don't think that's the best thing, but we thought we should give that to you as an option, because what we didn't want to do was come to this meeting and say, guess what, we got $18 million. Well, what in the world do you want to do? Because that discussion could take a long time. And it is absolutely still up to the council to decide, what do we really want to do? And we can have that discussion. It's well within boundaries to dislike both Ron and my proposals and come up with a third. But we thought we would start the discussion with the recommendation from us to allocate $1.5 million each that we would recommend to the rest of the council for their approval, up to the amount of the request. So we would never exceed the request. So with that as background, I'm going to open this up for a discussion about what we do and see whether or not we can come to some agreement in the next 20 minutes if we're lucky, or longer if it takes it, because this is really important stuff. We've got a huge opportunity here. I spent the weekend with the head of the Quigley Foundation as well as Laura Turner from the Turner Foundation. The Quigley is the Burt's Bees proceeds, that family foundation. And they both have pretty good sized foundations, and it is, this 18 million dwarfs what they do. The Turner Foundation gives away $8 million a year, and you hear a lot about it. We're sitting here with $18 million. It's a really big deal, and we need to make sure we're doing it well. We have been through our due diligence and such on these projects that we've already done, so it's not like we're starting from scratch, but this is important work. So with that, I'd open it up to discussion about what you think we should do given the situation that we're in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a clarifying point. From the allocation sheets that we submitted, some folks zeroed out certain projects. If we went with option number one, would all of the projects be opened back up to that, or would we need to stick with generally what we put down?
In in Ron's recommendation to you, there was only one project that did not get funded at all, and that project would not be part of our consideration because the group did not already allocate money to it, and everything else would be open for allocation. It did not seem fair to drag something back that didn't have a significant level of support from the council initially. We have, $300 million worth of projects, $325 million worth of projects, and now we have, $137 million. It's not like we can fully fund all of the great projects that we've all agreed on. So that again, that's a council decision, but that would be our recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Another procedural question. How are we going to deal with the two members that aren't here if you went with the individual one?
So I did ask Ron, if you were here, what would you want? And I'm prepared to share what he said. We get to decide that. I don't know. We could divide it by 10 instead of divide it by 12 because we have 10 members here. And that's an okay strategy as well. I didn't know that Senator Tomassoni was going to leave, so I didn't anticipate that, or I at least anticipated Ron not being here and got his feedback. So it is, his comment to me was it'd be a whole lot easier to just divide it 15% to everyone. And but I didn't know he was leaving quite as early as he did, so we have to decide. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I first talked to Mark about what the possibilities were, I was not in favor of each member getting the 1.5. I've done a 180 on that. I would suggest that each of us gets their 1.5. I know Senator Tomassoni fairly well. I don't know what he would have done, but I don't think he would be offended, disappointed if you took his 1.5 and spread it evenly out amongst the rest of the projects, similar to what I think you're suggesting for Member Shara.
Well, Member Shara had two projects
Oh.
that he would divide his funding up to.
Okay.
That's his, if he gets a vote, because he's not here, he knows he doesn't. But if we want to listen to what he wants, I'm prepared to tell you what he said and why.
Well, being that he's not here, it's easy for us to just say.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Just, he was recommending $750,000 each to PA09, which was Heron Lake Conservation Partnership, and HA05, Accelerating Habitat Conservation in Southwest Minnesota. So those were his two suggestions to us.
Thank you. I'm still just a little bit curious about how this happened. So if it was option one, do we need to take a vote, or, I mean, how do we want to move forward on deciding which one?
What we would need to do, subject to approval at that end of the table, is we would need a vote to approve a method to do the allocation, which would be, we're going to take and give everybody, if you choose option A, you're going to give everybody $1.5 million or divide it by 11, $1 million, whatever we decide, and we'd approve that. And then I would recommend we pick numbers. Sandy's prepared to decide who goes first, because there's obviously a strategic advantage of going first and last.
You've overthought this way too much.
Well, I knew, I have, but I don't want to,
I know, I'm teasing.
I want to do this fairly, and I want to do it intelligently, because it's a really big deal. But there is a strategic advantage. If someone else funds what you're most important in, then you get to fund your second choice. So it seemed like picking lots to go, who goes first, second, and third would be a fair way to address that issue. And then we could either vote as each member, or you could recommend your $1.5 million, and we could take a vote on that, or we could put it all in the hat and vote on it collectively if the group wants to do it. It's really up to the group, not up to me
And so we'd be picking the project today,
today.
right now.
Because our bill has to be in before we,
Just, just making sure.
yeah. Sure. We're going to text Senator Thomasoni and ask him,
I just texted.
oh, if what, huh? So I'm
doesn't
sensing that
respond.
option A has some appeal to people, is that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one thing, I agree with you, there's some advantage to going first and last. I was one of those that wasn't real fond of the $1.5 million, but I feel more comfortable with it today because we've really already decided on a bill, the basis of a bill, and we're not adding or deleting any new projects. We funded every project but one, and that one could get a CPL grant if it was to work out. The one thing I could say, I might feel better if we all did it at one time, and just each one of us wrote down our 1 through 4 projects and had them, and then we read each one, we would go in whatever order, but we would have them. And then if we could end up with a project getting overfunded, that little bit, I think we could probably decide as a group. It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm trying to take away the perception that there's winners and losers in how the process works.
The one concern I would have with that is, if I saw a project was funded at $2 million, and I thought the best funding amount was $3 million, and I'm just making this up. And so I wrote down $1 million, and you wrote down $1 million, and you wrote down $1 million. Now all of a sudden, it's $6 million when my vote was really to get them to a certain point, and now we really are picking favorites without the benefit of discussion. Tom?
Mr. Chairman, in dealing, if some of us feel like we want to put some additional money in CPL, I mean, how much, that's the only one I can see really that has, I mean, we raised it already, and
If you went by the rules that Ron and I talked about.
okay,
There are $314,000 left to put in CPL, and then it will be fully funded.
Okay.
Because what we did collectively as a group, they asked for 12.475.
yeah,
As a group, we gave them 11 million. No, I'm sorry. We gave them 10.7, so there's room, I'm very sorry. There would be room for $1.3 million if my math is right.
Okay.
And the problem with giving them more is to give someone more than they've said they have the capacity to deal with seems problematic.
yeah,
And we have plenty of people who said they have so much more capacity than we have money for.
yeah.
To give someone more than what they asked for seems,
Except in the
Maybe not.
case of CPL, which is a little different scenario,
it's up to the group.
yeah. Well, Mr. Chair, I'd move option A, and and we can still discuss, I'm just moving it, yeah.
Okay? So we have a motion. I'd like a clarification from you, if you would, as to what we do with the 2 members who aren't here's funds, because we got to decide that.
Senator Ling, do you have any information?
No response. Probably driving.
Probably shouldn't be texting. So, given that, what I would recommend, is that we divide it 11 ways and listen to what Ron has recommended. Is that acceptable with your motion?
Well, it is, except there's a couple of projects which are forest oriented that are around where Senator Thomasoni lives that I would think that he probably would be supporting. But if you aren't here, it's,
And he knew,
yeah.
yeah.
Mr. Chair, former Senator Saxog, he can make that change in the legislature when the bill gets there. And I know he's highly capable of
And
that.
Skinnis, yeah, that's right.
He's got that little sheet here.
Sure.
I would just say in the drawing of lots that the person who isn't physically here, that he would be the
Absolutely.
first one to go.
Okay, so we have a motion?
Senator Saxog, could we not spend his $1.5 million until at the very end of the meeting? Just, I think there's a great chance somebody will get a hold of him. I'd prefer not divide it by 11. I'd prefer to divide it by 12.
Okay,
You know.
if we end up with his share at the end of the meeting, then we'll have a motion as to what to do with it. Is that fair?
That would be my suggestion.
That's
Okay,
fair. All right, so the motion is to divide by 12, to have Ron share his comments in first, and to have Senator Thomasoni's in last, and if he is not able to communicate us by last, we will deal with the last $1.5 million. In a way we haven't decided.
This motion includes the
So-
6%.
This motion assumes a 6% draw.
And that
So
puts us at 1.5 even.
Tom, are you willing to specify the 6%? This is assuming the 6% holdback that we've already approved for the
Right.
main bill.
right.
So that's part of the motion. Thank you for the clarification. It's essentially to allocate an additional $18 million. So all in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
That's right.
Aye.
Opposed? Sandy, will you do the honors? And you're going to pull out one? Because Ron is going to go first. And you can pull out 12 because Tom is going to go last.
Oh, we don't know which one is 1 and 12, so it's,
Okay.
as we go around, it can.
Okay,
We're at one.
If you get 12, give it back to Sandy.
if you get one, give it back to Sandy.
No, just,
While everybody's drawing,
Yep.
make comments.
No, it's one.
Is one first?
One is first.
That's the best thing you can get.
Members, while you're drawing your numbers, I'll just make a couple of comments. There is this spreadsheet, which is a member allocation summary from back a while.
that's you.
And the reason this,
That's,
maybe I should
Can't
just
get
wait.
one. You got
Hey, stop, you've already picked two.
I know, they're both 1 and 12.
You got one.
You want to go get a lottery ticket?
Yeah, you better.
You got number 6.
I think it's 9.
What are you now?
Oh, you
11.
were a home run.
I know. 3 for
Okay.
3.
Hey, you got 11. Jeez.
She says, stop pulling the cards on there. Where are they? These aren't the buttons. What's the name?
Jamie?
Yeah, just clarification on the CRP, or CPL,
Yep.
sorry. Is it 10,726,000 was the funding recommendation? So then, just trying to get what that exact number is.
I will do a quick calculation to make sure we have an exact number and I don't lie to you.
I was going to comment on that. May I?
Yes, please.
Okay, members, thank you, Member Swenson, for bringing that up. Each of you have this spreadsheet in front of you, This is actually, this spreadsheet was asked for specifically by a member to bring out, by two members, so that they could see what their past appropriation was, what they originally put in. And so the numbers of the right were just an averaging of the allocations at that time. The actual appropriation numbers are slightly off from that, which you'll see on the spreadsheet that Joe will bring up in a moment for tabulating. So, if, for instance, and the one that really shows up is the conservation legacies. It's about halfway down on the front side of that. It's 12, the ask was 12,475,000, and the rounding average of the members' allocations was 10,317,000. However, in the bill, from following deliberation from the council and stuff, the actual bill recommendation was 10,726,000. So, in other words,
And the reason for that was, when we did the averages, there was a very small discrepancy because we didn't fund one project, so we put it all into the CPL program.
absolutely correct. And that's why on this one, you also see a recommendation for that very last one that was not ultimately funded by the council. So I just wanted to bring in perspective for you exactly what this is. This was really asked for so you could see your individual previous recommendations.
So Joe, are you ready?
I'm trying to get it up.
So you're right after Sharon.
So,
Yep. Sure. So while they're
just
trying to
Mr.
pull up. the-
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
just one thing real quickly. Are we okay with what we're doing? Okay, just making sure.
Yep. Thank you.
Smart people.
So, Ron's recommendation, given that he has $1.5 million to recommend, would be to fund PA09, Heron Lake Area Conservation Partnership with $750,000, and to fund HA05, Accelerating Habitat Conservation in Southwest Minnesota, with $750,000. His reasoning was that Heron Lake is historically an incredibly important waterfowl area that has been terribly degraded over the years, and this is the first time we have seen a proposal to significantly go in and start to address the issue. And that we have not funded, in his mind, as much in the west part of the state as we should, and therefore, with HA05, he would like to see us make an investment there.
How much on that one?
750,000 for both of those. So on his behalf, I will make a motion to do 750,000 to both HA05 and PA09. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Who was numbered? Joe, are you?
Yep, got it.
Okay. So Joe, what I want you to do is if any project gets to full funding or is close to full funding, or someone recommends something that would put it over full funding, you're the policeman. Let us know.
Mr. Chair. Would it be possible to take 5 minutes to get a printed out copy of the current recommended funding amount and the request from
if you were to fold your sheet, you would have that.
So is the brown
The brown is what is in
the
our,
bill?
that's what is in our bill as we started today, that we've already approved. And the sort of green is what they actually requested,
With the exception of CPL.
with the exception of CPL that got an extra few
Oh,
hundred.
that's why it didn't match up. Okay,
And
And
the
if
very
you just
last
do
one.
this, it would get you there.
okay.
And then the very last one.
And the-
Can I ask, we made a motion to approve Member Shara's request, and I understand that he's not here. I'm wondering if, as opposed to a motion after each member does it, if we could look at the cumulative total after they've all been put in, and then we could have a discussion about where we're at, as opposed to approving it along the way. Because I think there's a chance that when we see the whole thing, we may say, you know, the other alternative would be to take what we basically did. We reached a consensus before, based on the assumption of having 117. We could do the other alternative if we thought that was more viable to all of us, just to add a percentage. I feel a little under the gun if we start adding it, that we're just going to automatically accept what everyone does. And I think, just in full disclosure, we should have a discussion to see what it looks like. We did that when we had the chair's proposal, and we all decided, it's a great proposal, let's live with it.
So what you're suggesting is that we all go around the room and then look at what those totals would be, assuming we go around the room, and approve that as a package or modify it as a package.
And even to the point, yes, and I'm even thinking that Joe wouldn't tell us what's over if one does go over. The probability of one going over, the only one I could see would be CPL. And my guess is somebody's going to modify that. But then we get to the end and say, here's where we're at. Do we like how it looks? As opposed to,
I would say I'm comfortable, but I still would like Joe to tell us when we get to the point
yeah,
where,
okay, yep.
Unless you have a motion that was passed, that you sense that motion to go back to the one, so.
did we, yeah, we passed that. But we didn't, are we specific in your motion that it was one at a time approval, or could we do it with,
I can amend, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to amend my motion at a majority of the council.
did we approve the vote one at a time? That's my question.
We could just have a clarifying motion.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's what I would like then.
Okay,
I
I'll
I just want to keep it
amend
so
my,
we're doing it right.
I'll re-amend, or
You'll clarify.
I'll clarify my motion.
And your clarification is that we will go around the room through the process with recommendations from everyone, with Joe keeping us from exceeding what the requested amount was. And when it's all done, look at what it looks like and decide whether or not we want to approve it.
Right. That's my motion.
All right. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you for that. So we have 750,000 in each of those from Ron. Who was number two?
Anyone want to trade? No? All right. So I guess I will add to the CPL, 'cause take one for the team here, so you can put it towards other ones. I'll do 500,000 to CPL, and then I'd like to do 1 million to, let's see, which one is it? WA 02. And reasoning, they have a successful track record for on-the-ground projects, a very strong leverage. They're a workhorse in Minnesota, specifically in the ag-dominated landscapes of southern Minnesota. And they have a strong
Which is Shallow Lake and Wetland Protection and
restoration
Restoration
program.
Program.
Yep, correct. And a strong project partner that achieves results.
Okay? Everyone clear what Jamie's recommending?
I missed the first.
CPL.
CPL.
500,000 for CPL.
Oh, 5.
Okay, who's number three? Ashley.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can Jamie please repeat that?
Sure. So it's 500,000 to CPL and 1 million to WA02, which is Shallow Lake and Wetland Protection and Wetland Restoration Program.
All right. Now, Ashley.
I'm going to do 750,000 to the Wetland Habitat and Protection Program, WA03. And then the remaining amount to PA07, the Rim Grassland Reserve.
So 750,000 to PA07.
Correct. Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's what you said, divide them up east.
Joe, do you have that?
You knew that.
I'm number 4. I would do God, I was hoping for a high number. 500,000 to HA02, Metro Big Rivers. $500,000 to PA04, Northern Tallgrass Prairie Northwest Refuge.
How much to them?
PA04, 500,000. And $500,000 to FA03, Northern Forest Habitat Conservation. Got it, Joe?
Yep, give me 2 minutes. Alrighty.
Okay, who's number 5? Tom?
I'll do HAO2 Big Rivers, Metro Big Rivers for 400,000. Mississippi, HAO7, Mississippi Headwaters Habitat Corridor Project for 400,000. FAO3 Northern Forest Habitat Conservation for 400,000. And CPL for 300,000.
Your math is good.
Remarkably similar, weren't they?
Okay, Joe, do you?
Yep, let me,
Yeah, I just checking.
Well, you're waiting for 6?
No, we're waiting for Joe to make sure that he's got the numbers right.
That'd be hard to argue it's a 9.
I just written down the numbers. I don't know who did it. Just so I can keep track.
CPLs at the top of the 11s.
Yeah, it's sort of there.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
All right, number 6, Denny, I assume that's
Okay.
you.
HA02 at the top, 250,000. HA06, well, 2/3 of the way down, 250,000.
What is, yeah, what,
HA06, Targeted Rim Easement Program to the individual parcel. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong sheet when I told you where,
The
sorry.
amount of that, please?
250. And then HRE01, Minnesota Trout Unlimited, 250. And then the fourth one, PRE01, Minnesota DNR Grassland, 750. PRE, that's that one right there. It's a roving crew.
What did you do on the rim?
750.
750 on rim?
The room was 250.
250. Targeted Rim Easement Program, HA06, 250.
okay, who's number 7?
That's me.
500,000 to HA06, the Targeted Rim Easement Program, Crow-Wing,
How much? I'm sorry.
500. 500 to HA07, the Mississippi Headwaters Habitat Corridor Project. And 500,000 to HA02 Metro Big Rivers.
No, let them know.
Okay, number 8.
I was gonna do 500 to HA05.
Which is,
Accelerating habitat in southwest Minnesota. And then FAO3, Northern Forest Habitat Conservation, $1 million.
Okay, ready, Joe?
FAO 3 had one.
FAO 3, at 1 million. Okay, who's got number 9?
It's me.
Kristen?
So I made some changes based on. Okay, FRE 03, Young Forest Conservation, 250. HA 08, Hennepin County, 250.
Yep.
Yep. And then PA 03, Minnesota Prairie Recovery, 1 million.
Can you just repeat your first one?
Yeah, FRE 03, Young Forest Conservation.
PA 03, right?
Okay, number 10.
Number 10, okay. 500K to HRE 08,
Which is HREO 8.
Sauk River Watershed Habitat Protection and Restoration. 500K. 300 to the Heron Lake PA 09. 400 to HRE 05 Shell Rock River. And 3 to HRE 07, the Rosa River Habitat Restoration.
Did you say 500 to HRE 09? What was your,
HRE 08, Sauk River.
would you mind just repeating your 4 in order again?
Okay. First one was HRE 08 Sauk River, 500K. Second one was PA 09 Heron Lake, 300K. HRE 05 Shell Rock River, 400K. And HRE 07 Rosa River, 300K. That was 1.6 mil, by the way, just so you know.
We're going to take it out of Thomasoni's share. Okay. Senator Lang, you're last.
Am I?
Well, almost.
11. Can you tell me what's in the CPL right now?
800.
Plus 800, yeah, but what is that? That's,
Mr. Chair and members, we have 11,526,000.
Just under $1 million.
let's do, yeah, well, at least, let's do 500 in that. 500 in the
No coaching.
CPL. What's that?
I said no coaching.
Yeah. Then we'll go up to HRE 06. We're gonna put 130 in there. What does that leave me at? And then put the remainder in FA01, which would be like, was another 800,000, 700,000. I'm not doing the math in my head very well now.
870,000.
870, okay. After we get that
Into which one?
FA01,
Camp Ripley.
Ripley.
Can you repeat your second one?
What's that?
What was your second one?
We start with the CPL, and then HRE 06,
Thank you. Wrong
uh,
number.
and then that's the 130 that'll get them within $2,200 of their total. They can find that, right?
Could come ask each of us for $2.
Cheryl, like that.
So we got a text back from Senator Tomassoni saying, put it, a percentage in everything. Divide mine up evenly amongst all the projects, which is not the rules we established, but what he wants to do.
I'd make a motion to acquiesce to Senator Tomassoni's desire on his portion.
Which would be
We too then-
15% add-on to the, a 15% boost to the allocation, yes, we have 15% more money. You're right, it'd be 1/15 of 15%.
No,
Be 1/12.
But,
Of-
Mr. Chair?
No,
CPL is at the max, so we're
Right.
not, you're not gonna put money into that. So take, right?
isn't,
Oh, it's
isn't,
not?
49 short.
is,
Oh,
so,
okay, I thought he,
my
I
mo-
thought you got to the max.
I think what he's saying is that however many projects we have, divide the 1.5,
You're making the motion, I read you what he said.
he said divide it up amongst all of them, right?
There's room in CPL still.
The text was divided up evenly.
How many projects do we have?
With the exception of the one that wasn't funded, I would
Yeah,
assume.
well, that's not part of our allocation. So what he would like to do is divide up the, however many projects there are divided by, or $1.5 million divided by the number of projects and give everyone that boost.
41 projects, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, so let me just,
It's the Senate way.
let me just, I want to honor all requests, but if he is the only one and he's giving 100,000 to this project and this project and this project, they have to redo the accomplishment plan for every single one instead of just the ones that we've approved. So there's a complexity to that I want to at least acknowledge from the staff standpoint in terms of their management. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I'm just,
I'll withdraw my motion, or that I started.
Well, and I would clarify, Senator Tomassoni originally, I think we'd be, he originally did a percentage of every project. I know it might be a little more difficult than going a flat amount, but I think we should put a percentage to each one. And the only two I think you're in danger of is Rum River and CPL. I think that's what he meant to do. I think that would be more fair, because that's what he originally did. So you'd add 15% or 16% and skip the ones that go over. No? Representative Fabian?
You can't add 15%.
no, you would add 15% to his recommendation is what you're saying.
Yes.
Whether or not the math works on that.
And Mr. Chair, that would be 3% or whatever, somebody could figure.
So,
Mr. Chair, I think you ought to ask Senator Thomas to pull over to the side of the road and pick.
why don't you call him? We're going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to try to get a hold of him. And then we're going to come back and make a decision, because if we divided it evenly, it's $38,000 per project.
And then we're over the top on, Anoka County thing.
All right, I'll pull my 30,000 or whatever it is out of that, and he can tap it out, and then put it back into,
CPL.
what was the other, no, CPL, or yeah, CPL, that's fine. Can you do that math, Joe? Then we don't need to call him.
Done.
So you're gonna, Mr. Chair, so you're gonna take 30,000 from Rum River
Yep.
and put it into CPL?
Yep, and then whatever the total is for Thomas, what did you say it was? 31,000?
36,585.
36,585. Right.
Let's do 35, and if we have a little extra, it's a whole lot easier, because we're going to need some rounding anyhow.
We don't need to call him, he's,
Okay, so.
We're not gonna put 36,585.
35.
No, what I'm hearing, the discussion is 35 is a consensus. Would that put Rum River over the top?
nope, should keep it.
You gotta skip it though.
I put 130 into it, so it was, if I just put 100.
Where's your 30?
CPL.
It would be just, it would be 5,000 over.
All right, 25. 95,000 then.
I'm just trying to, Sandy, you look like you'd like to say something.
I'm just confused where we're going with this.
Mr. Chair? I would interpret what Senator Tomasoni has said, that he wants to evenly do it, and if it happens to put anything over, he'd prefer that to go to CPL. That would be my interpretation of what he said as he's driving down the highway.
Is that your motion? on
Yeah, I'll
his
be in
behalf?
trouble. He's not gonna get mad at me at the legislature. I interpret Senator Tomasoni to evenly put 35,000 in each one with skipping Rum River,
Mr.
and
Chair.
add the Rum River to CPL.
Mr. Chair, I think it would be appropriate to maybe take a 5-minute break and call him on the phone and be clear on what Senator Tomasoni's desires are. And I think also if the rest of us had to, keep it at 4, I think it makes sense that he would also want to keep it at 4 projects. But either case, I would move that we take, if we need a motion, but that we take 5 minutes to be sure that.
Okay, we're going to take 5 minutes. We're going to ask you to try to get a hold of him, Mark. Try to get 4 projects out of him. If not, we'll come back and do it. So we'll come back here at 1:36. please.
For BioBreak?
Where is Jamie?
Want me to run out?
We should just have a little bit more money and just stuck it in there.
Okay. Where did Representative Fabian go?
He went to his office.
We have 9.
Bad shape.
Okay, I will tell you what Thomasoni said, which is he would divide it evenly among all the projects. If Rum River has already reached its max, just use the number of projects, use the excess that shouldn't go there and put it into CPL. So I'm not going to ask you to do the math right now, okay? Can we just accept that that's what he wants done and add that to the calculation? It's roughly 35,000. Essentially, we're going to interpret that as 35,000 more to each project, and anything that bumps beyond that level just goes into CPL.
He just did it.
Okay? Great.
Can I just clarify then? Because Lang had wanted to reduce HRE 06 from 130 to 100
He did
max.
reduce it, it's done.
Okay,
And I'm going to ask everyone for permission for staff to tweak things just a little bit here to make it work, because this is on the fly, and if we've got a $10,000 this or that, I think we can trust our staff to get it right, just as we trust them to round the numbers from our original recommendation. So, Joe, can you read out first of all, we have to be out of this room 5 minutes to 2, because there's another meeting, so just that. Do you want to read through the recommendations, or did everyone get a good enough feel going through with what the approximate totals are for each project that you're comfortable? I'm seeing nods. Everyone's comfortable? So we have, can I have a motion to approve adding the amounts that have been recommended by everyone to what we have previously recommended?
I'll make that motion.
And Greg and Janelle, keep me honest if I do anything wrong here, okay? Because I want to get this very right.
Mr. Chair, I just want to point out with the CPL grant, if the amounts within that are proportional, for different regions, or if it's just going to go on the top.
Do
you know what I'm saying?
The award process first in the application, they're behind us, I believe.
But there's a specific carve-out for Metro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would it be, the increase would be proportional?
It'd be all proportional.
If everyone,
Mr. Chair, if I may,
please.
with their original accomplishment plan for their ask, there was a stated amount for Metro and so on. So I would suggest that it's going to be, that would be the amount that they'd be setting aside from a regional standpoint.
And that would be proportionally increased.
That's a great question. Would you like to make an amendment to the motion?
Yes.
Clarify that.
Yes, I'd like to amend the motion to include a proportional increase to CPL
For
within each.
regions from the
For
total
each region.
increase.
Correct.
So that the proportion stays the same.
Correct.
Everyone clear on the motion?
Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if Mr. Pavelka could move to the bottom. I thought I saw the number quickly. I thought you overspent. Oh, I'm wrong.
Mr. Chair, members, we have $200,000 left because we used,
And we're going to leave that there because that's way more than we want to get into today. That's your chair's recommendation. You can override me. Okay, so we have a motion to amend the motion that would just clarify that CPL would be increasing proportionally between state and metro.
And it would also, I would like to add to the recommendation that staff have the flexibility to assume that proposals will be prorated when they ask for amendments to the accomplishment plans, that none of the proposers, for instance, put it all on the administrative part or all, that we did this in good faith, that we assume we were proportionately increasing the projects and we would expect proportionate accomplishment plans, understanding that we need to give staff the flexibility that sometimes that's not the case. But if it's blatantly not appropriate, that I don't know how that language would be.
So what I would recommend is that we request that staff identify anything that seems at all out of order before the final accomplishment plan comes to us with the revised plans,
Perfect.
so that we can then have a discussion about whether we accept the accomplishment plan.
Everybody will get revised accomplishment plans after the bill's signed.
Yep. And if it's out of line, they will discover that we might not approve that accomplishment plan.
This isn't,
Okay, we have the amendment. All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have the main motion to add the 18 million according to what we've just gone through. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Signify by saying aye. Opposed? All right, we've done that.
You need to note there was no opposition.
There was no opposition.
in the 10 members.
motion carries.
Motion carries. We now need to approve the actual bill language, which we have just modified based on the work that we have done. And we've modified it by the accomplishment plan adjustments that we have approved earlier today. So I would look for a motion to approve the bill language, subject to the two changes, the changes to the accomplishment plans that would be added to it that we approved earlier today, and the changes to the amounts that we just went through and approved by the previous motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Any discussion?
Allowing staff to make technical edits as necessary.
And would you accept that you will allow staff to make technical edits as necessary? So the motion carries that language. Yes, he said yes.
On the record.
On, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm showing everyone voted in favor of it, which is 10 of us in the room. We needed 9 votes. There was no opposition. Let the record show that. So, the last, we have 2 other items. We have a sample, and just let me say, thank you all for the collaborative way that we dealt with this. It was really nice, a little messy at times, but it was really nice to see everyone working as a team to get this done. It's very gratifying to me that we found a way to make this work and get $18 million more on the ground quickly, to have done our job to do that, and to do it on short notice and to do it fairly. So thank you all for working with me to work through an interesting situation. So we do have our calendar. And given some of the things that we talked about earlier, we may want to come back to you with an added date, but we'll do a poll before we do that. So the calendar that's in front of you, I don't know if it works for everyone or not. There are 2 dates on it that don't work for me now. Do you even want to hear that, or do you want to just approve it and know that Ron will be here in my stead? The week of the 24th of June, I have a company board that's asked me to be in Germany to do some work for them, and I can't make that work. The week of the 17th would work just as well for me.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, we moved around some dates later in the year for 2019, so I'm sure we could discuss at the January meeting if anything else needs to be moved around.
Okay, so should we assume this is right and try to work on those dates at our January meeting?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Quickly, what week are you having trouble with in June?
I'm having the 24th and 25th are a problem for me.
And so you're suggesting.
So the 17th, anything the week of the 18th, 19th. So we'll come back and discuss that. We don't have to approve all of this. We are meeting on January 29th. That's an approved meeting. We'll see everyone here for that.
Is it okay with the council if we post that calendar at this point?
As a
then?
tentative calendar. Okay? All right. Lastly, we have an agenda item of public comments. We have someone who would like to make a comment. I'm going to hold it to 2 minutes because we do have to be out of here, completely out of here in 7 minutes. So you have 2 minutes, sir.
I have some handouts, Chair. My name is Rick Keller. I officially represent the twice exceptional people with print disabilities. Come here to speak today at the LCC, the Lessard-Sams Outdoor Heritage. Specifically, the handout I gave you has to do with the digital accessibility again of these documents. I've expressed that before. There's a screenshot there. I'll be submitting a document to your personal emails regarding this. Last 2 pages, 3 pages of that document are image format. As you can see, what I've circled there will show you how to find your way into the metadata to show you that those documents are not tagged for digital accessibility. Here we just spent $18 million, but we don't consider digital accessibility for transparency and engagement for the public. I'm surprised that wasn't part of the money that was left over. The legislature defunded the 1962 bill and moved the working group out 2 years about digital accessibility for the capital. But here there's extra money and we're not even considering it. I take that as an offense for the twice exceptional people with print disabilities. You will, if the document that was created there is a public entity, they're not required to do that, but unless you have a policy that makes them aware about this, especially if they're using our state dollars. I'll give you a few examples. The legacy logos, they're not tagged. They're invisible for the blind. That's one example. Another one is the PowerPoints. Where are they today? They're not digitally accessible, even though DNR made them. They don't check them. That's a state requirement. No one holds them to the fire. You have these 3 handouts here. They're not online. Your draft with underlined language does not appropriately let people know that that's added language into your draft bill. Your draft bill does not say draft when it reads out loud. Unless you really get serious about what it means to have transparency, it also relates to digital. You're considered a larger audience based on the Minnesota Constitution. It's interesting, too, as we talk about people that use these dollars and ADA architectural access. How is that embedded into these projects regarding people in wheelchairs, et cetera? It's not, and it needs to be. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you. We have to be out of this room, everyone, in 5 minutes. So please clean up. Thank you so much for the work today. I do appreciate everything everyone did and the way we did it.